passports. And I've got in the studio here with me William Nyako. William Nyako is Executive Director for the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability. He's going to help us to subject this particular vetting to a bit of scrutiny. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on The Pulse. Now let's start with her composure for you. I believe that this is an area that your center has been very focused on and so understand the issues. But let's start with her composure. Are you, to what extent would you say her composure for you fits the office that she's been nominated for at the moment? What would you say?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think she was very well composed, and this is arising from the confidence that she had gained, having been a deputy minister of that ministry in the past, and having been a deputy minister, she obviously has become very used to the policies and procedures within that office. Of course, a lot has changed since she left, but she was very confident. She showed that she was on top of the issues.
You say she was very confident. I'm going to ask you what you make of her answering, the way she approaches questions. Sometimes she says things like, I'm not sure. And I've heard her say a couple of, I'm not sure what it means. And I'm wondering, does it necessarily show you that this is a person who's on top of the job, or this is a person who understands it, or this is a person who has perhaps done her homework to be able to meet this committee because she knew she was going to be subjected to a bit of scrutiny? Do you get the confidence that, because you say that her composure is okay, but what's about the way she approaches the questions and she goes like, I'm not sure. There's some, at a point she even says something like, I can't answer that question, and then the chairman jumps in.
Yes. So obviously there were moments which showed that she was not on top of some of the issues. And that, in fairness to her, is fairly understandable, especially if you have not immediately occupied the position. The expectation is and was that you come to the process, fully briefed and having done your research as well. It depends on the area that she covered. But for the issues that she spoke on and she was confident about, she showed that she was on top of those issues. On top of the issues.
So let's start dealing with the passport issue. Passport issue is a very difficult, has been a bone of contention for a lot of people. If you should go to the passport office right now, you would see a queue. You see a huge number of people all wanting to seek passport. It's not just in Ghana. If you want to go outside, and I could speak of the UK, that you go to the Ghana office and you meet a few Ghanaians in the UK and they tell you the struggles that they had to go through acquiring a Ghanaian passport and things like that. Are you impressed with the answers that she gave to questions about making passport acquisition easier for Ghanaians both home and abroad?
She clearly indicated that she was open to helping to improve the process which has been started by the outgoing minister. But clearly, I think the passport acquisition process needs continuous improvement, both when you are in Ghana and when you are overseas. I have had situations where I had to acquire a passport, a Ghana passport, when I was in the US, in the Washington, D.C. office. I think a lot of it also shows some of our cultural backgrounds where you don't have a lot of transparency up front. The procedures must be explained up front and followed. You should know when you submit your passport, when you are going to get it, and not just having the information where it has to be.
So this is your expectation of how the problem can be solved, correct?
Yes.
Did she address that for you?
I think partially she did, but also she didn't have enough, she didn't provide enough substance to the process, which tells you she does not have all the facts about the issues pertaining to it. And I think in fairness to her, because she hadn't assumed the office, there were certain changes which have occurred that she may not be aware of. But you have to look at what the intention behind the actions that she intends to take. Recently, there was the launching of the application passport application system and all of that, which that should be complementary. Majority of people go to the offices and try and get passport. there was the issue about decentralizing the process, so that instead of everybody coming here,
you can do it
in the various regions.
She spoke about that as well. So, well, you on the whole, you would say she dealt with a passport issue good, or you would say that, well, the work has already been done for her. So the moment the Hannah Tete led foreign ministry initiated this online application, then the work has been already done for her? Or do you think that she still went ahead to give some answers that impresses you as to how well she did?
I think that she did a fair job. Right? I wouldn't say, you know,
you keep saying fair. Is fair okay?
There's fair, there's good,
it's fair,
there's
okay.
better,
Or can
there's
we aim
best.
higher?
Yeah, we should aim higher.
Yeah, right.
But you see, this is a person who is coming in. So you don't get into a new job. Nobody gets into a new job fully aware of all the facts. You know, nobody comes to a new job fully, extremely qualified for it.
Okay.
So there will be learning curves, there will be learning moments. But I do think that for somebody who had been a deputy minister, a deputy foreign affairs minister in the past, you know, she did come with some information, but of course she needed to update herself a lot more about how things have changed, and so that she could have responded in the manner in which she brought a lot more to it than she did.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Mr. Onyako, but we've got to go quickly back to Parliament and get some reaction from some of the parliamentarians, of course, some of the members on the appointment committee. What do they say to the parliament, to the vetting process so far? Here's Joseph Gakbo.
Possible duplication of duties, because they're drawing attention to the role of the Trade and National Minister, and then they spoke about the business development minister of the presidency vis-a-vis the work of the senior minister and all of that, and how that could balloon the government budgets because of all of these ministers who will be serving in the Akufo-Addo government.
Honorable Yosafo Mafo, when it was, I don't know whether you watched it, and I asked him whether it is justified for the president to have more ministers, to look at what the public is saying, that when he balloons his ministers is an additional cost. His response is that he is the president. He is coming with a vision. And my vision is to make sure I succeed and I deliver. Therefore, the number of ministers that I want to help me to govern, I'm ready to look at it.
But is that fair to the taxpayer?
Which seems to President Kufuor said something when he was in power, that we seem to know the cost of everything, but we don't know the value of everything. We need to judge President Akufo-Addo at the end of his term. This is the kind of ministers that he wants. And the ministries that he has created are not full ministries with a staff. They are going to operate under the budget of the president at the presidency. They have a small desk in their offices that they want to work. They don't have a whole ministry with a chief director and accountant, research officers, and field of. That is not so. It's only one minister at the table and maybe a secretary who is going to facilitate the work that he's going to do. And they are going to operate from the arm of government in the presidency. So I don't see of course, they are in opposition, so we expect some of these things.
Many thanks that the Honorable Titus Glover. He's the Member of Parliament for Tema East, and he's a member of the committee, the appointment committee here in Parliament, giving us those views there.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo there talking to Titus Glover. We're back to the studio so we can have a quick discussion on this. Let's look at what she said about economic policy. There was this question about the economic policy. Well, before we even go there, let me find out from you whether or not you think the questions from the panel, the questions from the committee were good enough to bring to the fore the issues, the key issues that are confronting us in our foreign affairs.
I think that I don't think so. I think it could have been better. I think it could have been better. There are a number of regional and international issues that could have been brought to the fore. Okay. Even the non-aligned, Ghana's involvement in the non-aligned movement, whether we should still be in it, when in actual fact we are aligned somewhat, because we have to take positions on issues.
Right.
So that non-aligned movement, which was founded in 1961, whether it's relevant for Ghana to still be in it, is an issue that I thought that should have been highlighted so that we would have had better discussion.
I think they touched on it, but we'll come back and deal with that. We've got to go back to Parliament. And, I believe that it's it's good for you, so we can have this conversation in the studio and cross over to Parliament as well. So right now we're talking to Boko Central Member of Parliament, Mahama Yarga. There, let's listen to him.
Essentially, it's the same process, and Shelley too is the same thing. She's been at the Foreign Ministry. And so she,
as a deputy, and then she's coming back as the main woman in charge. One of the things that came up was a question about the Gitmo 2, which is a very interesting thing that a lot of Ghanaians had paid attention to. The chairman of the committee gave the ruling that it was sub judice, as he said it, and so the question shouldn't have been allowed. Do you agree with that position? And don't you think that's an issue that's really of public interest that we should have had a Minister-Designate for Foreign Affairs pass a comment or two on?
Well, I mean, I don't think that his ruling is right. I think the issue before the court is the constitutionality of the action, I think. So if the issue before the court is the constitutionality of the act, it's a different matter from asking a foreign minister nominee, let's say a question like, will you recommend that they go back? Not as a constitutional question, but as a position of your government, because His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo claims that he wasn't consulted on the matter, and the NPP as a party opposed the whole arrangement. Their opposition wasn't really on the issue. I mean, initially, Nana Akufo-Addo, then as a candidate, made references to some legislation and felt that by our immigration laws, it shouldn't have been possible to bring in those people from Gitmo. Because if you read both our immigration laws and the law on terrorism, anti-terrorism legislation, I think that was basically his initial argument at that time. But he didn't go to the Supreme Court. Other people went to the Supreme Court, I think. But today, the question that is being asked is not about whether or not it is legal or illegal, it is constitutional or unconstitutional. It's a question of whether or not she, as foreign minister, today will advocate for a return of those suspects who were brought to Ghana. I think that sometimes the chairperson is overly protective of nominees, Sometimes it's better to allow the nominees to answer the questions, because really speaking, the matter before even if there's a matter in the Supreme Court, it doesn't prevent anybody from expressing an opinion of what he or she thinks about the matter before the Supreme Court.
So you are a lawyer, you're on the committee. The minority leader himself, Harun Idris, is a lawyer, both of you on the committees. You, for example, disagree with that, decision by the chairman. Why didn't we hear you challenge it and seek to ensure that the right thing is done and that's the question is allowed through?
The issue about committee work is that you don't want to publicly be seen engaged in a fight. It doesn't bode well for the image of the committee. So if the chairman gives a ruling, he gives a ruling, and the ruling is binding, so you take it. If you object to a ruling of a chairman, you have to come by motion, to rescind that decision, and that is quite a process, and that will see us embroiled in some issues. But I think that the issue before the court, yes, is the legality. But if you ask her for just her opinion about the matter, not her opinion about the case in court, what should be the outcome? Just ask her, do you think the Gitmo people as a country we should expel them, whether it's legal or illegal? Do you think we should expel them? How can that border on the decision in the issue before the court? I mean, that's the point that I'm making. It has nothing to do with the issue in the court. Yeah.
Very well, then that's the Member of Parliament for Boku Central, Mahama Ayarega, speaking to us there. Well, the expectation is that in less than 15-20 minutes, two other ministerial designates would be appearing before the committee. Specifically, we're expecting Boachie Jakon, who is the Minister-Designate for Energy, to come in. But before that would be Haji Ali Mahama, who is the Minister-Designate for Local Government and Rural Development. That will be coming up soon, and we will be live here from Parliament House with all of those vetting sessions.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo there with Mahama Yarga, Member of Parliament for Boko Central, talking about the just ended vetting process for Madam Ayoko Botche. And now that they started talking about Gitmo 2, maybe it's a good time for us to jump in on that. And then I pick your thoughts on how you think she addressed that issue. She said it's a difficult question. And then the moment she said that, then the chairman came in and said that issue is in court. And so presupposes that they should move on. Basically, she didn't answer that question. What do you make of that?
No, I think she should have answered the question. It was to get her opinion on the issue. And it didn't have to have any connection with the case which was in court. Imagine that all the questions that were asked pertain to issues that were in court.
So then there won't be any vetting.
Yeah.
But that's not possible.
Yeah, but if you have a majority of it, I think we should learn to move from the culture of the sub judice, that people who are not before the court should be free to, make comments, which is duly required in a democratic society.
I think they are free. They are free to make a comment, but it's about what you say and how you say it, because then you're not sure of when you will be you'll be cited for contempt.
Yeah, but this is an area which I think Ghana's democratic governance is evolving. When matters are before the court, generally nobody is supposed to speak to it. But it should be people who are before the court. These are the lawyers, these are the witnesses, these are the people, the prosecutors, these are the people who should not be making a strenuous, but we in the public square, such as at the Trotro station, such as in the studio, we should be able to make comments.
Well, I believe in the Trotro station you can't make a comment, but on air, on national television or on radio, where you're talking to a huge number of people, a large number of people, then you've got to be careful, because you don't want to say things that is seen to be prejudgmental, to the matter that's in court.
Well, I think that eventually Ghana will get to the point where we'll separate the court processes from the comments in the public square.
Okay.
And so, but on the Gitmo issue, I think it was an important issue. It was going to enable us who were listening to her and also Parliament to try to figure out how she would handle an issue like that when it comes. And so the chairman, excuse me, should have allowed that to happen. It seems to me that the chairman has been overly protective of the nominees who are coming before, and it's important that hopefully there will be some conversations to reorient the chairman to know that he is just a facilitator. He is not supposed to vet questions that people are going to ask.
Well, he does that. He's got that power to do so. But the only point is that people have said that, and this is not the first time. We've seen this happen. Even with, this is day 3, day 1 and day 2, we saw this happen. People are saying that it's not new, because if it was now the majority is minority and the minority is majority, that it used to be that when the tables turn, it's still the same. So perhaps we should be looking at the bigger picture. How do we ensure that the chairman does not unnecessarily interject, so that they protect their own? Okay, so they protect their own because it's still part of their government. So maybe we should begin to talk about the bigger picture.
Perhaps we should have the minority chair in that, and so that we can have a lot of substance coming in. In the absence of that, I think the chairman and people who chair some of these committees must understand their role as being facilitators. They have to expand speech rather than restricting speech in circumstances like this. And we have to see more, of an expansive process where people are able to ask questions. And of course, those who ask the questions too must ask meaningful questions.
Right.
Some of the questions, are administrative questions, like full stop on the CV and all of that, which may not be.
Do you share the same view with those who think that the whole process, the whole session for the CV should be scrapped, or perhaps should be the time given to the session where they look into the CV and talk about the CV should be drastically minimized, or perhaps scrapped? completely?
I think the orientation should be on substance. The members of the committee must reorient themselves to important issues, not administrative or clerical errors. So, for example, if you ask a question about a person's board membership on an issue, this should be connected to the issue of conflict of interest, for example. You just don't ask the question because the person served on a board, but you should connect the board membership to the position that the person is going to occupy, and to see whether there will be potential conflict of interest, and if they arise, how the member is going to deal with it. So all the questions should be connected. I think perhaps you should offer training as journalists to the committee members so that they can connect.
Maybe Parliament can look at that. Parliament can look into doing that, but not obviously.
Of course.
Not us. Let's wrap up on this conversation by looking at. She spoke about, you were talking about non-alignment, and you said that Ghana is aligned one way or the other because we take position on issues, but we do not have a fixated alignment, if you like, or so to speak. She says that, well, she's not sure if it still exists, but then if it does exist, then we won't change our position. And then another issue that I would like for you to touch on is the appointment of diplomats, whether or not, how is the ideal way to go? You're looking at a situation where if the previous government tried to implement something, where a process where they appoint deputy heads of missions, and so then it is a political appointment. And I've had a few diplomats friends who are not really happy with that arrangement because they believe that career diplomats should necessarily fill that position. From the way she said, I think she said that they do not. Her government does not back the political appointment for deputy positions, and I'm interested to know what you make of that as well.
I think the process is evolving. What we should come off with this is that we should have a bureaucracy. Every institution of state has a bureaucracy which should have more people who are in the service, moving up to a point. When it comes to ambassadors, you should have a mix of career diplomats and of course politicians as well. I heard that they were mentioning like 60-40 or so. But it's a political process. When you have an ambassador, the ambassador, in most cases is the person who is actually, prosecuting the issues by the president-elect.
They are political figures. Some of them are not necessarily well trained in diplomacy, so they won't be able to do the right things per se. And so if you complement them with people who are career diplomats, who have studied the trend and they understand what has to be done, then it makes the work easier.
It does. So you have to have a mix. The question is that how much of a mix are you going to get?
On a scale of 100%, where do you stand?
I think that politicians should get at least 20%. They should get 20%, and we should have 80%. You don't agree with the 60-40? I don't agree with the 60-40 because politicians, we change, tenures will change. We have to have a core, bureaucracy that still has, memory and that can, prosecute the agenda. In the interest of the state. Okay.
I think we'll be moving forward to talk about Gambia. Of course, it's one of the biggest, it's been one of the biggest issues this week, and we've looked at it, but we can touch on it briefly before we will go back to Parliament if we have to, because like I said, today we're expecting 4 people to be vetted. 2 have gone down, talking about Minister-Designate for Trade and Industry, Alan Chematin, who has just gone through the process, and then we've seen Madam Shirley Ayoko-Boche also go through. We're expecting Minister-Designate for Agriculture and Local Governments, Madam Halima Mahama and Dr. Efuye, to go through that process as well.